Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our OKI 811 webinar today. In today's session, we will review the best practices for submitting quality locate requests on the OKI 811 excavator portal. My name is Renelle Freeman. I am the Director of Contact Center Services here at OKI 811, and I'll be your presenter today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you do have questions throughout the webinar, you can enter them into the chat feature at any time. You may get your answer throughout the webinar, or we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar as time presents. Also, to let you know, we will be having a drawing for a gift card after the session. We will do that after the session ends, and a member of our team will contact the winner of that gift card, so stay tuned. So today's agenda includes important information on what the excavator can do to prepare the dig site and the responsibility of the excavator to ensure safe digging. First off, we will review best practices for entering the vital details on your locate request to ensure a quality and timely locate. Then we'll do a overview of the OKI 811 portal mapping and how to search and map the results. And then lastly, we'll talk about scope of work limits and review some examples on how to split those locate requests to abide by the law. So knowledge of the worksite prior to submitting the locate request avoids confusion during the locate request process, and it saves time for everybody involved. So you want to get to know your dig site before you put in the locate request by gathering the location details, such as the address, intersection, driving directions, wherever the location is. And then you'll want to determine the excavation area as well. So where is the work taking place on the property once they get there? Another important thing to remember is you'll want to verify or handle any access issues that are on the property prior to submitting the locate request. Access issues can lead to delays in the project. Failure to provide those access issues can also require a new ticket, delaying your project and starting the process over. And those access issues are things like animals or locked gates, or any issue that may result in unsafe conditions for the locator accessing the property. We also suggest that you white line the area. That's the best practice of marking the outer limits, the route or the perimeter of a proposed excavation. You want to use white paint, flags, or stakes to do that. And then you'll need to establish a field contact. The field contact must have actual knowledge of the work site per law. They must be able to answer questions about the project. And then you'll establish a work date. So when does that work crew plan to start work? You're going to plan ahead with up to a 10 business day advance notice if you would like, but the minimum notice is 3 business days. That's 48 hours, not including the data notification, weekends, and holidays. And then you're ready to contact OKI 811, and we suggest doing that by the excavator portal at www.oki811.org. As the excavator, you would be responsible for confirming before digging. You want to be sure you check the OKI 811 positive response system for the facility operator response. They are required to use that system to make the response to your locate request, but you'll also want to check your emails and voicemails for additional communication, and then you're going to need to check the site to verify the markings and make sure that anybody who has stated they have marked or other has responded on site as well. And then you'll respect the tolerance zone. The tolerance zone is a strip of land that is 2 feet on either side of the facility, plus the width of the facility. And you'll want to dig with care. Exercise reasonable care near or within that tolerance zone, hand dig or other methods approved by the facility owner. The OKI 811 excavator portal is the most efficient ticket entry method. Again, that's at www.oki811.org, and then you click on the excavator portal to access that. It's available 24/7, 365. There's no hold time. It's very user-friendly. It has a mobile optimized interface, so it doesn't matter if you're out in the field and you're on a mobile device or a tablet. The screen will adjust to the size of that device so that it's easy for you to input your locate request even when you're out on the field. We also have various ticket type entry available on the portal. Not only just your normal locate request, but you can submit emergency tickets. You can do updates, second notice, just to name a few. One of the other great features about using the portal is your excavator information is saved. So basically, if you've created an account and you're using the portal to put in your locate request, which we would highly suggest as a professional excavator, your information is saved each time as far as your company information and your caller and contact information, so that you don't have to re-enter that every time you put in a ticket. You also have some cool search features. You'll have access to a certain amount of your tickets within a certain amount of days, so that they're right there. You can export them, you can print them, you can view histories and do different things with that. And then we have some ticket draft features where you can save tickets as a draft to view later. Maybe you want to get ahead of the game and put it in now and get it ready to send next week. You can definitely do that with our save as draft features. We do also have some helpful resources on the excavator portal to help you through the locate request entry. These are things that are right here available on the portal without, they're accessible on most pages within the portal without interrupting your ticket entry or other workflow. So some of those are the OK 811 Help Center, which is on the left navigation panel. We have an excavator resource tab. And then we also have an agent chat. That's the blue icon in the middle of the page on the right. You can talk to a agent pretty much through business days, Monday through Friday through 6 p.m. If you just have a quick question, usually they can answer that for you, and so that you can move on about your day. We also have a lot of different tooltips available on the website in different fields to give you the exact information that we're looking for in that field to kind of help that process along as well. And then don't forget, we also have an Oki 811 YouTube channel that has different videos and tutorials that you have access to anytime, including our podcasts. So the worksite information is required to ensure the facility operator or locator is notified and can determine the accurate dig site. So some of that vital worksite information that is required would be, of course, the physical address, the intersection or driving directions to the site, the marking instructions, so where on the property is the work taking place, what is that path of excavation. You'll need to follow the scope of work limits by Oklahoma law, which we'll talk about more here in a little bit as well. And then you'll need to map the location on the map too. It is required to do so. You'll need to encompass the dig site on the map, and you'll need to encompass it in its entirety. An important thing to know about the map on the portal is that the marked area on the map determines the facility operator is notified. So that means if you don't mark enough area on the map, then you raise the risk of not notifying the correct facility operators. So keep that important. Accuracy is extremely important, especially with the mapping. So first up, let's talk about the location of the dig site and what information you can expect to provide when submitting your locate request. If you have a physical address and you'll want to provide that information, that's going to include a county and place selection. For the address, you're going to enter the house number, the prefix, the street name, the street type, the street suffix. You're going to hear me say that many times during this webinar because it's extremely important. Not only is it important for the map search on the portal to help you get to the right area, but it's also important for the locators to find the correct location. That prefix information indicates what side of town the address is on, and it's very important for finding the address. As I'm sure most of you know, there's many prefixes. There's north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast. So any of those can apply to different addresses across the state. And then the street type is also equally important because there are different street types such as street, avenue, place, terrace, court. It identifies which road the address is located on. And in many cases, especially with numbered streets, there can be streets that have Northwest 60th Street, Northwest 60th Place, and they can all have the same house number as well. So it's extremely important that those two pieces of information are provided for the locators and also for you to find the correct location on the map. The cross street is also very important. This is the nearest cross street to the address. And again, you're going to include the prefix, street name, and street type on that as well. It'll help you with the map search and give that information to the locators. Basically, when you break down all of the elements of an address, that house number, prefix, street name, street type, those elements all work together to kind of help determine where it's located within the given city. So driving directions is next. If there is not an address available, then the driving directions obviously would be required. They have to know how to get to the dig site. So on the entry form in the worksite field, you're including a county and a place. Again, for the cross street, for the intersection that you're starting your driving directions at, You would enter that into the street name field. So in the prefix, the street name, type, and suffix fields. So that's where the work is taking place. And then the cross street field, you would enter that nearest intersecting street. So basically this is going to be the information where you're starting your driving directions from, or the intersection that you're working at when there's no address available. In the driving directions field, you're going to provide the details of those driving directions. So you'll enter the driving directions starting from that intersection, which most likely should be the one you've entered into the worksite fields. You're going to provide compass direction and distances between each turn, provide what side of the road it's on, and how far and what direction to the site from the road is helpful too, especially if it's rural. Any property identifiers or other physical identifiers are helpful too, again, especially if it's rural, to kind of let the the locators know where the work is taking place and what they can look for as they're driving to look for that location. So an example of some good driving directions that are very both simple and clear, but give us the information that we need, is from the intersection of Northwest 60th and North Villa Avenue, west 100 feet to the pole number 1234 on the north side of the road. I've got a starting point. I've said how far to go. I've got a reference point, a property identifier, and a number, and I'm telling them what side of the road it's on. It's very simple, very clear instructions on how to get them to the site and what they're looking for. For work at an intersection or from an intersection, the entry is very similar to what we reviewed just now with the driving directions. Again, entering the county and the place, that intersection information in the same fields that we were just talking about, and the cross street information. In the driving directions field, because again, it is a required field, if there's no address, you'll have to put something there. So it kind of just it depends on what you're doing. If you're gonna enter the intersection details into the driving directions field, whether it be that you're working at the corner or whatever your starting point is, or just the intersection itself. So if you're just working at the corner of the intersection, you can definitely just put the intersection in there, such as northwest corner of North Villa Avenue and Northwest 60th Street. And then your marking instructions would then provide the instructions of what to locate from there. The next important part of the locate request is the marking instructions. The marking instructions describe the area on the property where the excavation is taking place. Again, keeping it very clear and simple is key. Also want to note, requesting more to locate than what is needed is not only a drain on the facility operator's resources, but it can take more time for the locate request process in general, including more time and effort for you to maintain those ticket numbers. So some different examples of locate instructions that might be helpful to you is kind of run in three different categories here. So there's a certain part of the property that you're providing. So this is more like, I need the front yard located, I need the backyard located, I need the rear easement, or I need the full property. Of course, only if you're excavating that entire area. If you can provide a more precise area, that's definitely suggested and preferred. But if you do need the entire front yard or the full property, that's completely fine. You can request it that way. So an example would be locate front yard. You can provide a radius of a physical object. So that would be like a marked area of some sort, or a physical identifier, a stake, a pole, an intersection, but you'll also want to include a general location if you're doing that too. So for instance, the example on this one would be locate a 25-foot radius of the stake on the northwest corner of the house. It's providing exactly where that stake is and what kind of area I need located around that stake. And then a certain width of a linear path along a physical object. So like a white lined area, a staked line, a pole line, fence line, anything that's physical that they can see that's a linear path. You want to be sure that you do include a starting point for that path, the ending point, and how far and what direction you're going. If it's a roadway, what side of the road are you on? If it's an alleyway, what side of the alley are you on? And then providing how wide of a path to locate along that way would be is helpful as well. So if you only need 2 feet on either side of the fence line, then that's very helpful. That lets locators know that you don't need more than 2 feet on either side, and it lessens the time they spend on the site to locate. So just a few examples of those different marking instructions is locate 5 feet on either side of the white marks from the north side of the house going north 150 feet. Locate 5 feet on either side of the temporary line from the structure, northeast approximately 150 feet to the pedestal. So these provide very straightforward starting points, how far to locate, what direction to locate, what side of the road if that's applicable, and if it's marked with white markings or if it's a physical identifier, all those information, very clear, very simple information to provide. So when submitting your locate request on the OK 811 portal, the mapping plays a very important part in ensuring all of the registered facility operators are notified on your locate request. The area drawn on the OK 811 portal map determines what facility operators are notified on the locate request. So that means basically the little orange marking here that we see on the top left here for this address, we're only notifying the companies right there within that orange polygon and a small safety buffer on top of it. So just keep that in mind when you are encompassing the dig site on the map. If it falls within the property boundaries, you're doing the front yard, backyard, then this is sufficient. But if you are going outside the property boundaries, then that area also needs to be covered on the map. So encompass the accurate location and encompass the entire marking instructions as they're described on the ticket. And again, inaccurate or incomplete drawings can result in the wrong facility operators notified, which can lead to potential damages to those underground facilities and accidents or loss of life. A majority of OK 811 members register their service areas by GPS points. So even a small discrepancy in that drawing on the map can affect who is notified. So just kind of keep that in mind. On the portal, there are a couple of different options to search for your dig site, whether it be an address, an intersection, or driving directions. The first option is the auto suggest search feature, and it's a very broad search. It will provide potential address, street, or intersection results that match your input, so you can enter any three of those types of searches in there. The results are going to include various town, city, and counties because it's looking for a match for the address, the intersection, or the street that you're entering in there. So you'll have to be aware of that for sure. And so when you include, when you're putting in the address or putting in a street name or intersection, again, include those prefixes and street names and street types because that's going to help with your map search. In this particular search, you won't enter the county and place. Again, it's only looking for the streets. So as you start entering, for instance, like Cargo Road and Highway 7 on your screen, it's looking for matches to that. If there's matches in other counties or towns, it may show those. But you would not put in there Carter County or rule of whatever town it's rule of. Just put the location, street names, or address. When you're putting in an address, the address results may include the same or similar address results again in various cities, and they also may include results with or without parcel boundaries, which we'll talk about more here in just a second. And then the intersection or street results, again, including those same similar results in various cities. All in all, you just want to pay close attention to the data that you're entering into that field and the county and the county and the city that's listed next to the results that display to make sure that you are selecting the correct location, especially if there are multiples. If you think about an entry of like First and Main Street, that intersection can be in multiple cities across Oklahoma. So just kind of keep that in mind as a good example as to why, first of all, to provide your prefixes and your street types, but then to look at those results and make sure you're selecting the right town and county. When using that auto suggest search feature to search for addresses, there are two general selections that are found. The first one is the parcel selection, and it indicates that the address and the parcel boundaries of that address were found. Result, that's the one you probably need. If you do select the parcels result, what the system does is kind of takes a few extra steps for you to kind of help through the process and make sure that you get the ticket marked. So basically, if you select the parcels category, it will auto mark the parcel on the map indicating as the dig site. So the orange polygon up here at the top right hand corner, that's where it auto marked 2505 Northwest 60th Street. If that area auto marked by the system doesn't cover the full dig site, if you're going outside the property boundaries, maybe you're just using that address as a reference, then be sure that you, again, mark the entire excavation path on the map. That means you're going to have to go and manually mark it, which we'll also talk about here in a moment. The addresses selection, which is generally the second selection, it just indicates that the address point was found, but it may not contain a parcel boundary. So for whatever reason, we don't have the boundaries of the property on the map. If you use that selection, it will temporarily mark a single point on the map in yellow as a suggested location, but you'll need to go in and mark the dig site with the drawing tools. And using the search tool, the auto suggest search tool, if an exact address is not found that you enter, you can try entering just the street name only or the nearest intersection to help you navigate to that area, especially if you're familiar with the area and you know where the location is. The intersection results when using the auto suggest search, they indicate, again, the same similar intersection was found. So when you select the intersections result, the system will temporarily mark a single point on the map in yellow as a suggested location. And of course, from there, it's just letting you know this is where we found the intersection. It's only doing a temporary marking and not, marking that as your dig site, because in most cases, you're just using that as a starting point for your driving directions or your locate area. So that means that you would need to mark the full path of excavation to be covered, and the system can't do that for you. So of course, if you're using that result, you're going to use measurement tools to follow driving directions, and you're going to use the drawing tools to manually mark the dig site. So the second option for a map search is via the worksite fields. So you can use the auto suggest search that we talked about, but then you can also just jump down to the county address and cross street fields and enter information there to do a search as well. So these results are a little bit more less broad than the auto suggest. They are narrowed down by the county and place that you enter, and you do have to put a county in place for them to work. So this search is more helpful if your address or intersection is not found by the auto suggest. So when you enter the address or intersection data into those worksite fields, then you'll click the search button to expand what's called a find panel. And this find panel can include additional mapping search results based on the information that you've entered. So even if the system does not auto find the location, the map results available in the find panel can help you narrow down the location as well. And just a tip here too, if you are using these fields to enter the worksite information, we do have a selection in the place field, the workplace field for rural. So if it is outside of town, if it is a rural address, choose rural because that will help you find the location. If you put Oklahoma City and it's a rural of Oklahoma City, then it may not find the best results. So just kind of keep that in mind. And of course, cross street here is important too, because again, this is another one of the results that you can find, the intersection of, like in this example, North Robinson Avenue and Northwest 70th Street. So put that in there as well if you know it ahead of time. If you don't, you can get it off the map as well. In that find panel, there are multiple data points available to help narrow down the location. You can see those all kind of outlined here. We're going to go through each one of them real quick. So basically, the exact street segment is pretty much the next best thing to finding an address. When this example address that we have on the screen is 420 Northwest 70th Street, and that particular address point, for whatever reason, is not on our maps. However, these additional search results in the find panel can allow us to drill down and then also look at surrounding data to help and determine where that address would logically fall. So exact street segment is the next best thing. What that means is the exact address of 420 Northwest 70th Street was not found, but the 100 block it falls in was found. So the 400 block of Northwest 70th Street was found. So when you select the exact street segment from the find panel, it will highlight where the 400 block is. And you can see that on your screen. And we have different 100 block labels here that'll show you too. You can see kind of behind the red line, on the right, there's 200, and then on the left, it's 499. So basically the 200, 300, and 400 block are within this span. You can also see different address points surrounding this area that help you identify that as well. We can see 408 just to the east of where 420 should fall. We have the 500 block to the west. We have the even numbers on the south side and the odd numbers on the north side. So these house numbers are increasing as we go to the west. So it's all information on the map that can help you figure out where 420 is, even if it doesn't find it or auto find it. It's basically just using the logical pattern of addresses and the information that's provided to you. The other map results, again, are the intersection. So we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but if you put the street information in the address field, the worksite fields, and then the cross street. It can find the intersection, so it's finding the exact intersection that you've entered, and then you can highlight that to find it on the map. And then the exact street is just an even broader search that just means the exact street was found, but not the exact address or the 100 block. This does highlight the full length of the street in the city. So if you're in a big city, it could, go several miles. But one thing that it does do is it also expands intersecting streets. So in the screenshot on the bottom left there, you can see it pulls up intersecting streets. So if you happen to have forgotten to put in your cross street before you went to the map, you can find it here too and click on it and go to that intersection. The mapping tools on the map will help you navigate, identify, and encompass the dig site on the map. The pan tool is kind of the default tool. You don't even have to click on it to do anything. You're always going to be default pan, but it is there in case you need to. There is an identify tool, and this is a really cool tool that a lot of people don't use, I don't think, because they don't understand what it is. But you can use the identify tool to click on an area on the map to identify certain criteria. So like an address, a street, a county, place. One good thing that this is used for is corner addresses. If you've ever been in our mapping system and other mapping systems too, sometimes on a corner address, there's two address labels there because there might be two addresses in that area and you don't know which one goes with which street. But if you use that identify tool and click on that parcel, you'll see in the results there on the bottom left, it'll tell you which one is which. So 2501 goes with Northwest 60th and 6105 goes with North Villa Avenue. So that's very helpful in those corner addresses. Believe it or not, we see a lot of errors on corner addresses. So if you'll use that tool in those instances, even if it doesn't show an address point there or something, sometimes you can click on it and it'll tell you different information about that area. So just kind of keep that in mind. Another thing it's good for is areas where you're not sure if it's in town or rural. If you use that identify tool and you click on a particular area, it'll show you the place name. So like Oklahoma City or Edmond or whatever it is. But if it doesn't show a place name, then that means it's rural. So that will help you with your map search and, selecting that rural selection versus the town. The measurement tool obviously is measuring distance in feet, miles, and yards. It's used to follow your driving directions or measure distances to make sure you're following the scope of work. And then we have multiple mapping or drawing tools. The draw work area tool is a default tool. So when you go into a new ticket, it's already selected. So you don't generally have to click on this unless you've been on the identify tool or the measurement tool first, and then you do have to click on it. But the draw work area tool does activate the drawing tools. And those drawing tools, there's 3 of them available. We have a line tool. So that's for marking a linear path of an excavation. So like pipelines, roadway work, stuff like that, where it's a single path. And then an area tool is the freeform polygon, which encompasses an area, and that is the default marking tool. That's the one that's always going to come up first. And it requires at least 3 points, and that's handy to know because sometimes people try to do like 2 points and intersect itself, and that won't work. So you need to make sure that you have 3 points that do not cross to make the area tool. But basically it's like drawing a square or a triangle or a rectangle. And then we have a circle tool, which is marking a radius of a physical point. If you do use this tool, we highly suggest that you turn on your aerial. You can see the physical point, or if you're doing it out of a GPS, that's fine too. But something that you know that that's where you're clicking on, because especially if you're putting in a smaller radius, you want to be sure that you're covering enough area on the map. And as another reminder, these drawing tools, these are what determines what facility operators are notified. So again, be sure you cover the entire dig site. The other tools we have available are a zoom to point tool that's in the top right-hand corner of your toolbar on the create ticket. That will allow you to zoom to and temporarily mark GPS coordinates, and you can do multiples. So a lot of people use this for linear paths to give the GPS for the beginning point and a GPS for the ending point, or sometimes people use it because they have it to kind of find their location a little bit quicker, especially if it's rural or something. The map layers are obviously the various aerial and street map layers that we have available on the portal. And then we have a tool that allows you to upload a file, a KML, a JSON, or other shape file to instantly mark your excavation path on the map. That's generally mostly for like large projects who are using Google Earth and that sort of thing to map out the pipeline or whatever it might be. We do just ask that if you are going to use that tool, that the components of what you're uploading, like the attributes, are very simple and there's not like a whole bunch of different folders and attributes in there. So let's talk about scope of work. So scope of work is basically how much area can be put on one locate request. So per the Oklahoma Underground Facilities Damage Prevention Act, each locate request may not exceed 500 linear feet in incorporated areas or 1 linear mile in unincorporated areas. For those jobs that are not linear, it would be no more than 500 feet by 500 feet in incorporated and no more than 1 mile by 1 mile per ticket in unincorporated areas. So again, when you're putting in your scope, request the area of excavation only. Do you need the full property located or the full boundaries that you're providing? Are you really working that entire area? Can you narrow it down to just a few different areas that might be more specifically described, especially when it's a large property? Can you separate the tickets by physical objects or marked areas on the property, like at a school or a church or something, if you're just working in the parking lots or if you're just doing some tree work in the grassy areas? Things like that will help narrow down the locate area. They might take a little bit more time for you to prepare, but in the long run, it's going to be less for you to keep up with and a faster process for the locators. So again, the amount of area you request to be located determines how many tickets you're required to submit to follow the scope of work limits by Oklahoma law. So if you have, a 1,500-foot job, that's going to be 3 tickets in town. There's no way around that. By law, that's what we would have to do. So narrowing down the locate area will result in less tickets for you to maintain and less time spent on site by the locators. Most excavation projects fall within 2 categories. A linear path of excavation is the first one, or an area type of excavation. So these are just some helpful information about a linear path. Obviously, that's a single path of excavation in one general direction. So one beginning point, one ending point, like gas, sewer, water, mainline work, sidewalks, road construction, pipeline, that sort of thing. We suggest white lining that area and again, providing how wide of a path to locate when you provide your locate instructions. Provide a physical starting point and stopping point when possible, and that can be an intersection or an address, or you would have to have driving directions to the starting point. You would need to include distances and compass directions from the start to the end of that project, and again, including what side of the road, what side of the alley, what easement, things we've kind of already talked about. And then of course, you'll have to separate by those scope of work limits. One thing we do suggest, if you are working along city blocks in town, separate by block when possible, even if those blocks are, 200 feet long. Separate by the block because that's going to be easier for you to keep up with and easier for the locators to follow. And of course, if there's a longer block, you still would need to stay within the scope limits of no more than 500 feet. And then you'll want to use your measuring tools on the portal to determine those distances, to verify them, make sure they're not more than 500 feet or more than 1 mile in rural areas to follow the scope of work limits. You can provide GPS as additional information. And again, as I've emphasized multiple times, encompass the entire described area on the map because that determines what facility operators are notified. So this example is a linear path of linear path of excavation in an incorporated or in-town area. So again, no more than 500 feet per ticket. The project in this example is on the north side of Southwest 40th Street from South Ross Avenue east to South Lynn Avenue. So that's a 2-block path, but the total distance is approximately 900 feet, and there is an intersection between there. So this is going to require 2 tickets no matter what, and the easiest way to do this one is to split it up by block because each block is less than 500 feet. So each ticket will be its own standalone ticket and will describe 1 block area starting from the intersection. You'll need to be sure you change the map to reflect that area described on the ticket, and you can use the line tool in this example because it's a linear path of excavation. So your example, ticket 1, the marking instructions would be something like from the intersection of Southwest 40th Street and South Ross Avenue, locate the north side of Southwest 40th Street east to the east side of South Miller Avenue. If you're crossing that road, you'll want to state that. And then your second ticket would pick up where you left off and go east to Lynn Avenue. If the blocks do happen to be more than 500 feet apart, which in a lot of areas they are, You can use the addresses within that 500-foot segment. So determine what, in this example, you can see addresses. You can determine what addresses are within a 500-foot segment and use those as reference. Or you can provide driving directions to each 500-foot segment and then the marking instructions for that up to 500-foot segment. The second linear path of excavation is just an unincorporated area, so a rural area, no more than 1 mile per ticket. Very much the same concept. This project is on the north side of 750 Road from North 3510 Road going east 5 miles. So no more than 1 mile per ticket means this has to be 5 tickets. You can split that up by each 1 mile section. In rural areas, most of the time there's a roadway at each mile section, so these are generally pretty easy. But if there's not, you can use driving directions as well. But the same concept as in town, you're going to describe each 1 mile section starting from an intersection, change the map to reflect that area described on each ticket, and use that line drawing tool. So in this example, ticket 1 would be from the north side, or excuse me, from North 3510 Road and East 750 Road, locating the north side of 750 Road east to North 3520 Road. So that's the first mile. And again, same concept. If intersections are more than 1 mile apart, provide driving directions to each 1 mile segment and the marking instructions for up to 1 mile segment. So area excavation can be a little bit more difficult to process, not only on the portal, but for our agents as well. So I'm going to kind of give you some ideas on how you can do it yourself. A large area excavation is basically working various areas within a given boundary. So think of like front yard, backyard, full property, dirt work, doing tree clearing, different things like that on larger properties. On site, if you can, outline the perimeter or boundary of the excavation area with white markings when it's possible. Again, narrowing it down as much as you can to where you're going to be excavating only. If there are physical points on the property or physical objects, use those. Separate your tickets by those physical points, or if you can mark certain areas on the property and do it that way, that's a possibility as well. You could split the tickets by roads that create a perimeter, or if there are no perimeter roads, then you'll need to provide driving directions to the starting point. And then as far as your marking instructions for those large area locations, provide a description of the boundaries with distances and compass directions. Again, use your measuring tools and the aerial to determine distances to make sure you're following those scope of work limits. You can use GPS for reference if you need to, and then again, encompass the entire area described on the map. So an example of area excavation incorporated, again, this would be no more than 500 foot by 500 foot per ticket. In this particular example, there's some physical objects present. This is a school property. The address of 6708 South Santa Fe, and they want all the existing parking lots located. And there's 2 parking lots on the property that they've indicated. So each parking lot is less than 500 foot by 500 foot area. However, the 2 of them together should be more, and they're on separate parts of the property anyway, so just easier to split them up into 2 tickets. It's going to require 2 tickets no matter what. So you'll submit a ticket for each parking lot, and each ticket can include the address. That's fine. The marking instructions would just change to reflect that particular parking lot. So you can get the measurements of the parking lot, everything you need off of our map using the measuring tool. Then you'll mark the parking lot on the map and describe that information on the ticket, and then use the area drawing tool to encompass that, because again, the area is going to mark a square or a rectangle, that sort of thing. So ticket 1 example would be locate the entire parking lot in front of the school along South Santa Fe Avenue, approximately 410 by 70 foot area. Very clear, tells them exactly where to go, how big of an area it is to locate. They know exactly what to do. You could use the same logic if you were going to be all over this property too. If you were going to be working the full property doing various excavation in different areas, you can separate by the physical objects on the property. This is a really large property. I think that would have amounted to probably 6 or 7 tickets if you needed the full property. So if you can narrow it down by those physical objects, like the grassy areas on the northwest corner, or the track. There's some baseball fields on this property. You can split them up by those references to help you narrow down the locate area, keep it a little bit easier for you to maintain and for the locators to understand once they get out there. So recap, Again, we have those portal resources that are available on the portal, the Help Center, the Excavator Resource Center, that are there and do not interrupt your workflow. You can look at them at any time. And then, of course, we have our YouTube channel. Avoid downtime, damage, and delays by preparing ahead of time prior to submitting the locate request. Be sure you're providing accurate and clear descriptions of the project area. The facility operators must have that proper understanding of the dig site to respond accurately and timely. Follow the scope of work limits. Encompass the entire dig site on the map as described on the ticket. And I'm going to say it one more time. This determines what facility operators are notified, so be sure that it encompasses the entire area. And then you want to confirm before digging, check your positive responses and the site for marking. And of course, you want to respect those marks. Make sure you're not damaging any facility lines or putting your crew at risk. That does conclude our presentation today. We do have some time for questions. If you have questions now, you can go ahead and put them into the chat, and I'm going to read over the ones that we have. But while I do look through these and answer questions, we would like to request that you fill out our survey. So I'll put that up on the screen while I'm doing that. Just scan that QR code. Your feedback is critical for gauging your satisfaction with this webinar, as well as helping us meet your needs on future webinar sessions. And as a quick reminder also, all attendees in this session will be entered into a gift card drawing. If you're the lucky winner, somebody from Okie 811 will be reaching out soon. So let's take a look at our chat questions. Looks like we have a couple. How do we indicate that there isn't an available address if those fields are required? Red asterisks, all of my requests are for interstate right of way. So basically, if there's not an address available, you would put in the street that the work's taking place on. So the address field, most of those, the only part of that field that's actually required is the street name field. So you put the street name that you're working on. So if you're working on the interstate, I-44, then you can put I-44 in there. It's not going to require you to put a house number in there, but what it would require you to do is put the driving directions, because if you don't have a house number or an address, then you'd have to have those driving directions. You don't have to put anything in there to keep that field from working, as long as you've got driving directions. And it looks like the second comment was to that first question. So if we don't have any other questions, doesn't look like anybody's typing. I thank you guys for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. And again, just fill out that survey information and let us know how we're doing and how we can serve you better in the future. I hope you all have a great day.